setting the stage for our journey through one of animation's most controversial and enduring universes. We'll explore how a small Colorado mountain town became the epicenter of social satire, supernatural chaos, and childhood innocence lost. From its humble construction paper origins to its current status as a cultural phenomenon, South Park has consistently pushed boundaries while maintaining surprising heart beneath its crude exterior. We'll establish the town's geography, its key locations, and a unique storytelling approach that allows for both grounded character development and completely absurd supernatural adventures. This introduction will prepare listeners for a comprehensive exploration of South Park's mythology, from ancient curses to alien conspiracies, from religious revelations to corporate corruption. Long before Stan Marsh first uttered, "Oh my God, they killed Kenny," the small Colorado mountain town of South Park harbored secrets that would make even the most jaded adult question reality. The origins of this seemingly innocent community stretch back centuries, rooted in ancient Native American wisdom, colonial disrespect, and a fundamental misunderstanding of the spiritual forces that govern the land. The Ute and Arapaho tribes who originally inhabited the South Park Basin understood something that modern residents either ignore or remain blissfully unaware of. This land is cursed, not in the Hollywood sense of dramatic supernatural manifestations, but in a more insidious way that seeps into the very fabric of daily life. The recurring deaths, the bizarre occurrences, the way reality seems to bend and break around the town's residents. All of this stems from decisions made long before the first white settler ever set foot in the valley. Archaeological evidence scattered throughout the series suggests that Native American burial grounds lie beneath key locations throughout South Park. The school, built directly over one of these sacred sites, serves as a focal point for supernatural activity. It's no coincidence that South Park Elementary becomes ground zero for so many inexplicable events. From the mysterious appearances of various creatures to the reality-bending episodes that seem to defy logic, the school sits at the intersection of the spiritual and mundane worlds. The arrival of European settlers in the late 1800s marked the beginning of South Park's transformation from sacred land to cursed town. These pioneers, driven by manifest destiny and a complete disregard for indigenous warnings, built their community without consideration for the spiritual significance of the land they were claiming. Churches were erected over burial grounds, homes built on sites where ancient rituals once took place, and the entire town laid out in direct opposition to the natural spiritual flow that the original inhabitants had respected for generations. This fundamental disrespect created what could be described as a spiritual wound in the fabric of reality around South Park. The land remembers the sacred ceremonies that once honored the cycle of life and death, and it responds to the modern town's cavalier attitude toward mortality with its own twisted sense of justice. Kenny McCormick's endless cycle of death and resurrection isn't just a running gag. It's the land's way of forcing the town to confront the reality of death that they've tried so hard to sanitize and ignore. The curse manifests in subtle ways that residents have simply accepted as normal. Parents sending their children off to school, knowing full well that apocalyptic events regularly occur there. The complete lack of long-term memory regarding traumatic events. The way adults consistently fail to protect children from obvious dangers. These aren't just comedic devices. They're symptoms of a community living under a supernatural influence that prevents them from learning from their mistakes or adequately protecting their most vulnerable members. Early episodes of the series hint at this deeper mythology through seemingly throwaway references to Indian burial grounds and ancient curses. What initially appears to be casual stereotyping actually reveals itself as foundational lore when viewed through the lens of the series' longer narrative arc. The Pet Cemetery parody in Spooky Fish isn't just a Halloween episode. It's an exploration of how the boundary between life and death has become permeable in South Park due to the land's cursed nature. The town's supernatural properties also explain the recurring presence of various mythological creatures and entities. South Park doesn't just attract weirdness by coincidence. It serves as a kind of supernatural magnet due to the spiritual disruption caused by its founding. The visitors, the underpants gnomes, man-bear-pig, and countless other creatures are drawn to South Park because the barriers between dimensions have been weakened by centuries of spiritual neglect and cultural disrespect. This cursed foundation also explains the town's relationship with organized religion. Despite multiple churches and a seemingly religious population, South Park's residents display a fundamental disconnect from genuine spiritual understanding. They practice the forms of religion without accessing its transformative power, leaving them vulnerable to the very forces that their ancestors' faith traditions were designed to protect against. The recurring appearances of Satan himself aren't random comedic choices. They're logical extensions of a community that has lost touch with authentic spiritual practice. The most telling aspect of South Park's cursed origins is how they've shaped the children who serve as the series' protagonists. Stan, Kyle, Kenny, and Cartman aren't just regular kids dealing with typical childhood problems. They're children forced to navigate a reality where the normal rules of cause and effect, life and death, and good and evil have been fundamentally disrupted. Their premature cynicism and remarkable adaptability to bizarre situations aren't character flaws. They're survival mechanisms developed in response to growing up in a place where reality itself cannot be trusted. Understanding South Park's cursed origins provides context for everything that follows in the series. The town's residents aren't just ignorant or incompetent. They're living under the influence of spiritual forces that actively prevent them from learning, growing, or adequately protecting their children. The children, in turn, must develop their own coping mechanisms and moral frameworks in the absence of reliable adult guidance or stable reality. This foundation of ancient curses and spiritual disruption explains why South Park can seamlessly shift between grounded social commentary and completely fantastical supernatural adventures. In a place where the barriers between dimensions have been compromised, where death has lost its finality, and where the natural order has been fundamentally disrupted, anything becomes possible. The town's cursed origins don't just provide backstory. They provide the metaphysical framework that allows South Park to function as both a mirror of contemporary society and a playground for exploring the consequences of spiritual disconnection. The heart of South Park's enduring appeal lies not in its shocking humor or social commentary, but in the complex family dynamics that shaped four very different boys into unlikely friends. Stan Marsh, Kyle Broflovsky, Kenny McCormick, and Eric Cartman represent distinct archetypes of American childhood, each molded by family structures that reflect broader societal issues while maintaining their own unique dysfunction. Stan Marsh emerges from what appears to be South Park's most stable family unit. Yet even this apparent normalcy harbors its own brand of chaos. The Marsh household represents middle-class American aspirations wrapped in a veneer of respectability that barely conceals Randy Marsh's impulsive nature and Sharon's long-suffering pragmatism. Randy, a geologist working at the South Park Center for Seismic Activity, embodies the modern American male's struggle with arrested development. His constant pursuit of get-rich-quick schemes, from founding boy bands to opening restaurants, reveals a man desperately trying to recapture youth while avoiding adult responsibilities. Sharon Marsh serves as the family's anchor, consistently displaying more emotional maturity than her husband while managing her own quiet desperation. Her periodic breakdowns and occasional affairs suggest a woman trapped by societal expectations and her husband's perpetual adolescence. This dynamic creates a household where Stan learns early that adults aren't reliable authority figures, fostering his cynical worldview and natural leadership tendencies among his friends. The Marsh family's middle-class status provides Stan with security that his friends lack, but it comes with its own psychological burdens. Stan bears the weight of being the normal one, the voice of reason in a group where reason is often in short supply. His frequent episodes of depression and anxiety reflect the pressure of maintaining stability in an inherently unstable world, while his relationship with his grandfather demonstrates his early awareness of mortality and the inevitability of aging. Kyle Broflovsky's family dynamic centers around intellectual achievement and cultural identity, creating both advantages and pressures that shape his character throughout the series. Gerald Broflovsky, a successful lawyer, and Sheila Broflovsky, a perpetually outraged social activist, represent educated liberal values taken to their logical extreme. Their household prioritizes academic excellence, social consciousness, and Jewish cultural identity, creating an environment where Kyle develops his strong moral compass and argumentative nature. Sheila's tendency toward hysteria and moral panic reflects a certain strain of modern parenting that attempts to protect children from every possible harm, while inadvertently exposing them to different types of psychological damage. Her campaigns against various perceived threats, from television shows to Halloween, demonstrate how well-intentioned parenting can become its own form of extremism. Gerald's legal background provides Kyle with analytical thinking skills, but also exposes him to adult cynicism about justice and fairness at an early age. The Broflovsky household's emphasis on being different and special due to their Jewish identity creates both pride and burden in Kyle's character. He becomes the group's moral center, consistently arguing for ethical behavior while struggling with the isolation that comes from maintaining higher standards than his peers. His relationship with his baby brother Ike adds another layer, as Kyle learns to balance protection with allowing independence, mirroring themes he'll encounter throughout his friendship with the other boys. Kenny McCormick's family represents the harsh realities of American poverty and its cyclical nature. Stuart and Carol McCormick embody the tragic figures of working-class Americans trapped by addiction, limited education, and economic circumstances beyond their control. Their household operates in survival mode, where basic needs often go unmet and emotional support is scarce. Kenny's frequent deaths and resurrections take on deeper meaning when viewed through the lens of childhood poverty. He literally lives with death as a constant companion because poverty makes survival precarious. The McCormick family's dysfunction stems not from malice, but from desperation and limited resources. Stuart's alcoholism and Carol's drug use represent coping mechanisms for people who see no viable path to improvement. Their participation in Cthulhu cult meetings reveals how desperation can drive people toward dangerous promises of power or salvation. This environment forces Kenny to develop independence and resilience at an impossibly young age, while also fostering his loyalty to friends who provide the stability his family cannot. Kenny's muffled speech, hidden behind his orange parka, symbolizes how poverty often renders children invisible to broader society. His friends understand him despite his garbled words, representing how genuine connection transcends surface communication barriers. The parka itself serves as both protection and isolation, much like poverty creates barriers between Kenny and opportunities available to his friends. Eric Cartman's single-parent household with Leanne Cartman represents perhaps the most psychologically complex family dynamic in the series. Leanne's permissive parenting style, combined with her history of promiscuity and inability to set boundaries, creates the perfect environment for nurturing a sociopathic personality. Her desperate desire to be liked by everyone, including her son, prevents her from providing the structure and discipline that could potentially redirect Cartman's worst impulses. The absence of a consistent father figure in Cartman's life creates a void filled by his own grandiose fantasies and manipulation tactics. Leanne's weakness becomes Cartman's strength as he learns to exploit her guilt and desperation for affection. This dynamic teaches him that manipulation is more effective than honest communication, setting the foundation for his increasingly elaborate schemes and his inability to form genuine emotional connections. Cartman's relationship with his mother also reveals his deep-seated need for control in a world where he feels powerless. His elaborate fantasies about being special or chosen mask profound insecurities about his worth and place in the world. The revelation about his parentage adds another layer to this dysfunction, suggesting that identity confusion and family secrets compound the damage done by permissive parenting. These four family structures create a perfect storm of childhood friendship dynamics. Stan's stability makes him the natural leader. Kyle's moral education makes him the conscience. Kenny's survival instincts make him the loyal follower. And Cartman's manipulation skills make him the wild card who can either unite or divide the group, depending on his mood and objectives. In the pantheon of television's greatest mysteries, few phenomena are as simultaneously comedic and cosmically horrifying as Kenny McCormick's endless cycle of death and resurrection. What began as a simple running gag in South Park's earliest episodes has evolved into one of the most complex supernatural mythologies in animated television, touching on themes of cosmic horror, religious symbolism, and the psychological toll of immortality. The pattern established itself early. Kenny would die in increasingly elaborate and gruesome ways. His friends would react with their now iconic, "Oh my God, they killed Kenny. You bastards!" exchange, and by the next episode, Kenny would return without explanation or acknowledgement from anyone except Kenny himself. This seemingly simple formula masks a profound exploration of mortality, memory, and the burden of knowledge that others cannot share. Kenny's deaths aren't random acts of cartoon violence. They follow patterns that suggest deeper cosmic forces at work. His demise often coincides with moments of moral significance or supernatural activity in South Park, as if his death serves some larger purpose in maintaining the town's spiritual balance. The elaborate nature of these deaths, from being crushed by falling objects to being consumed by various creatures, suggests that whatever force controls his resurrection demands increasingly dramatic sacrifices. The key to understanding Kenny's immortality lies in his family connection to the Cthulhu cult, revealed through various episodes that show Stuart and Carol McCormick attending mysterious meetings in hooded robes. These aren't casual dabblings in the occult. They represent a desperate family's bargain with cosmic forces beyond human comprehension. The McCormicks, trapped in cycles of poverty and addiction, sought power and salvation through ancient rituals that they didn't fully understand, inadvertently binding their son to forces that exist outside normal reality. The Cthulhu mythos connection explains several crucial elements of Kenny's condition. His muffled speech patterns, initially seeming like a simple character quirk, take on new meaning when viewed through the lens of cosmic horror. Kenny's voice is literally filtered through dimensions, his words carrying the weight of knowledge that human language cannot properly express. He speaks from a perspective that encompasses multiple deaths and rebirths, making normal communication nearly impossible. Kenny's alter ego, as Mysterian, represents his attempt to transform his curse into something heroic and meaningful. The Mysterian persona allows Kenny to acknowledge his immortality while using it to protect others, particularly his sister Karen, who remains unaware of her brother's supernatural condition. This superhero identity serves as Kenny's way of maintaining agency in a situation where he's otherwise powerless, turning his unwilling participation in cosmic forces into deliberate heroism. The psychological impact of Kenny's immortality cannot be overstated. He alone remembers each death, experiencing the full horror of mortality while watching his friends and family forget his suffering within hours. This creates a profound isolation that goes beyond normal childhood loneliness. Kenny exists in a state of perpetual grief for experiences that, from everyone else's perspective, never occurred. His deaths often involve genuine terror and pain, making his resurrection not a gift, but a curse that forces him to repeatedly confront his own mortality. The mechanics of Kenny's resurrection reveal themselves gradually throughout the series. His return isn't simply a matter of cartoon logic. It follows specific supernatural rules tied to South Park's cursed nature. His mother literally gives birth to him again after each death, though she remains unaware of this process. This detail suggests that Kenny's immortality is bound not just to cosmic forces, but to the specific spiritual disruption that affects South Park itself. Kenny's condition also serves as a commentary on how society treats its most vulnerable members. His deaths often result from the negligence or malice of adults who should be protecting him. Yet these same adults immediately forget their responsibility for his demise. This creates a cycle where Kinney repeatedly suffers the consequences of societal failure, while society avoids accountability by simply forgetting that failure occurred. The cosmic significance of Kinney's immortality extends beyond individual suffering to encompass broader themes about the nature of existence itself. His ability to retain memories across death cycles suggests that consciousness exists independently of physical form, while his friend's inability to remember his deaths implies that memory itself can be manipulated by sufficiently powerful forces. Kinney becomes an unwilling explorer of metaphysical reality, forced to confront questions about the nature of existence that most humans never have to consider. The revelation that Kinney's family's poverty drove them to make deals with cosmic entities adds another layer of social commentary to his supernatural condition. The McCormick's participation in the Cthulhu cult represents how desperation can drive people toward dangerous promises of power or salvation. They sought to escape their circumstances through supernatural means, inadvertently condemning their son to an existence that transcends normal human experience. Kinney's immortality also affects his relationship with his friends in subtle but significant ways. While Stan, Kyle, and Cartman don't consciously remember his deaths, their subconscious awareness of his suffering creates an underlying tension in their friendship. They instinctively protect Kinney more than they protect each other, suggesting that some part of their minds retains awareness of his vulnerability even when their conscious memories have been wiped. The series' exploration of Kinney's condition raises profound questions about the nature of friendship and loyalty. His friends' inability to remember his deaths could be seen as a betrayal, yet their consistent acceptance of his return suggests a deeper bond that transcends conscious memory. Their friendship operates on a level that exists beyond normal human relationships, sustained by forces that none of them fully understand, but all of them implicitly trust. Kinney's immortality ultimately serves as South Park's most potent symbol of childhood resilience in the face of adult failure and cosmic indifference. He dies repeatedly due to circumstances beyond his control, yet continues to return to care about his friends and to find moments of joy and connection despite his supernatural burden. Few moments in South Park's extensive catalog of shocking revelations compare to the slow-burn horror of Eric Cartman's true parentage and its connection to one of the series' most disturbing acts of revenge. The Scott Tenorman incident represents more than just Cartman's descent into pure evil. It reveals a twisted family legacy that recontextualizes his entire character arc and raises profound questions about nature versus nurture in the development of sociopathic behavior. The story begins with what appears to be a simple scam. Scott Tenorman, a ninth grader, tricks Cartman into buying his pubic hair for $10, exploiting the younger boy's desperate desire to appear mature and sophisticated. For most children, this would represent an embarrassing lesson about gullibility and the cruelty of older kids. For Cartman, it becomes the catalyst for an elaborate revenge scheme that reveals the true depths of his psychological darkness. Cartman's initial attempts at revenge follow predictable patterns of escalation. He tries various pranks and schemes to humiliate Scott, each failure driving him to more desperate measures. What makes this progression so chilling is how methodically Cartman approaches the problem, treating it not as a childhood dispute, but as a strategic challenge requiring careful planning and execution. His ability to maintain focus and determination over an extended period while orchestrating increasingly complex schemes demonstrates sophisticated psychological manipulation skills that far exceed normal childhood capabilities. The infamous Chili incident represents Cartman's masterpiece of calculated cruelty. By orchestrating the deaths of Scott's parents through a carefully constructed scenario involving Farmer Denkins and his pony-killing horse, Cartman doesn't simply commit murder. He creates a situation where his victim unwittingly participates in desecrating his own parents' remains. The psychological sophistication required to conceive and execute such a plan reveals Cartman's mind operating at levels of strategic thinking and emotional manipulation that border on the supernatural. The revelation that Jack Tennerman was actually Cartman's biological father transforms this act from simple revenge into something far more disturbing. Patricide followed by unknowing cannibalism. This detail, revealed years later, recontextualizes everything we thought we knew about Cartman's motivations and psychological makeup. What appeared to be an extreme overreaction to a childhood prank becomes a cosmically twisted family tragedy where Cartman destroys his own father while remaining completely unaware of their relationship. The implications of this connection extend far beyond simple shock value. Jack Tennerman's identity as a Denver Broncos player who had an affair with Leanne Cartman suggests that Cartman inherited more than just his father's genetic material. He may have inherited a capacity for deception and betrayal that runs in his bloodline. The fact that Jack abandoned Leanne and his unborn son to return to his wife creates a pattern of paternal abandonment that helps explain Cartman's desperate need for control and recognition. Leanne Cartman's role in this tragedy reveals the complex dynamics of denial and enabling that have shaped Cartman's development. Her failure to inform Eric about his father's identity represents more than simple omission. It demonstrates a pattern of avoiding difficult truths that has allowed Cartman's worst impulses to develop unchecked. Leanne's promiscuous past and inability to maintain stable relationships created an environment where Cartman learned to view manipulation as the primary means of getting his needs met. The Denver Broncos connection adds another layer of significance to Cartman's obsession with success and recognition. His father's career as a professional athlete represents the kind of achievement and public acclaim that Cartman desperately craves, yet his illegitimate status ensures that he can never claim that legacy openly. This creates a psychological wound that manifests as grandiose fantasies and desperate attempts to prove his superiority over others. The timing of these revelations within the series' broader narrative suggests that Cartman's evil doesn't emerge from nowhere. It represents the culmination of genetic predisposition, environmental factors, and supernatural influences that have shaped South Park itself. His mother's weakness, his father's abandonment, and the town's cursed nature combine to create perfect conditions for nurturing a sociopathic personality capable of acts that transcend normal human cruelty. Scott Tennerman's reaction to learning the truth about their relationship adds another dimension to the tragedy. His horror at discovering that he manipulated his half-brother into murdering their shared father demonstrates how Cartman's evil has the power to corrupt even his victims. Scott's subsequent breakdown and institutionalization suggest that exposure to Cartman's psychological warfare can cause permanent damage to those who encounter it. The chili incident also reveals Cartman's relationship with authority figures and his ability to manipulate adults into serving his purposes. His success in convincing Farmer Denkins to participate in his scheme demonstrates sophisticated understanding of adult psychology and social dynamics. Cartman doesn't simply deceive children. He possesses the ability to identify and exploit the weaknesses of people with far more life experience and supposedly superior judgment. The long-term consequences of the Scott Tennerman incident continue to reverberate throughout the series. Cartman's willingness to commit murder to satisfy his ego establishes him as a genuine threat rather than simply an obnoxious child. His friends' continued association with him despite growing awareness of his dangerous nature raises questions about their own moral development and the power of childhood bonds to transcend rational self-preservation. The revelation of Cartman's parentage also explains his complicated relationship with authority and family structures throughout the series. His desperate desire for a father figure, manifested in various episodes where he attempts to create or claim paternal relationships, takes on tragic dimensions when viewed through the lens of his unknowing patricide. He destroyed the very thing he most desperately needed, creating a psychological wound that can never be healed because he remains unaware of its true nature. This family legacy of deception, abandonment, and violence suggests that Cartman's evil may be as much inherited as learned, raising uncomfortable questions about the nature of moral responsibility and the possibility of redemption for someone whose capacity for cruelty appears to be encoded in their very DNA. South Park Elementary School stands as more than just an educational institution. It serves as a microcosm of American society's failures, contradictions, and ongoing struggles with identity, authority, and social progress. At the center of this educational chaos stands Herbert Garrison, whose personal journey from closeted gay man to transgender woman and back again mirrors broader societal conversations about gender, sexuality, and the complex relationship between personal identity and public acceptance. Mr. Garrison's character arc represents one of television's most extensive explorations of gender and sexual identity, though filtered through South Park's characteristically irreverent lens. His initial presentation as a deeply closeted gay man struggling with self-acceptance reflects the experiences of countless individuals who grew up in less tolerant times, when homosexuality was not just stigmatized but actively persecuted. His relationship with his hand puppet Mr. Hat serves as more than simple comedy. It represents the psychological fragmentation that occurs when someone is forced to suppress fundamental aspects of their identity. The puppet dynamic reveals sophisticated understanding of dissociative behavior patterns common among individuals dealing with severe internal conflicts. Mr. Hat becomes the repository for Garrison's repressed desires and honest thoughts, allowing him to express forbidden impulses while maintaining plausible deniability. This psychological splitting mechanism enables him to function in a hostile environment while gradually working towards self-acceptance, though the process proves neither linear nor entirely healthy. Garrison's evolution from Mr. Hat to Mr. Slave marks a significant step in his journey toward authentic self-expression. The introduction of Mr. Slave as a romantic partner forces Garrison to confront his sexuality more directly, though he continues to struggle with internalized homophobia and societal expectations. Their relationship, while often portrayed through exaggerated sexual scenarios, represents genuine emotional connection and mutual support. Mr. Slave's patience with Garrison's psychological complexity demonstrates the kind of unconditional acceptance that enables personal growth. The decision to undergo gender transition surgery represents Garrison's most dramatic attempt to resolve his identity conflicts, though the series portrays this choice as motivated more by confusion than genuine gender dysphoria. His transformation into Mrs. Garrison reflects the complexity of identity exploration in a society that offers limited models for understanding gender and sexuality. The character's subsequent dissatisfaction with his new identity illustrates how external changes cannot resolve internal psychological conflicts without addressing their underlying causes. Mrs. Garrison's romantic relationship with Richard, a cisgender heterosexual man, adds another layer to the exploration of identity and attraction. Their courtship and eventual breakup demonstrate how gender transition affects not just the individual, but their capacity for forming new relationships. The series uses this storyline to examine questions about sexual orientation, gender identity, and the complex interplay between physical and emotional attraction that defies simple categorization. The character's eventual decision to transition back to male identity as Mr. Garrison represents the series' acknowledgement that gender and sexuality exist on spectrums rather than in fixed categories. His final acceptance of his gay identity, culminating in his relationship with Big Gay Al, suggests that his various identity experiments were necessary steps toward authentic self-understanding rather than mistakes to be regretted. Beyond Garrison's personal journey, South Park Elementary itself functions as a satirical representation of American public education's systemic failures. The school consistently prioritizes political correctness and administrative convenience over actual education, reflecting real-world educational bureaucracies that have lost sight of their fundamental mission. Students regularly encounter inappropriate content, dangerous situations, and incompetent instruction, while administrators focus on managing public relations crises and avoiding liability. The recurring theme of educational authority figures failing to protect or properly educate children reflects broader societal anxieties about institutional decay. Teachers like Ms. Chalk Sondick, who literally dies from boredom while teaching, represent the soul-crushing effect of educational systems that prioritize standardization over inspiration. The school's response to various crises consistently demonstrates how institutions often make problems worse through misguided interventions based on political considerations rather than practical solutions. South Park Elementary also serves as the primary venue for exploring childhood social dynamics and their relationship to broader cultural issues. The school environment allows the series to examine how children process and respond to adult conflicts about race, religion, sexuality, and politics. Students often demonstrate more wisdom and resilience than their teachers, highlighting the disconnect between institutional education and genuine learning that occurs through experience and peer interaction. The school's role as a supernatural hotspot connects to South Park's broader mythology about cursed land and spiritual disruption. Built over Native American burial grounds, the school becomes a focal point for paranormal activity that adults consistently fail to acknowledge or address appropriately. This supernatural element serves as metaphor for how educational institutions often ignore or suppress uncomfortable truths in favor of maintaining superficial order. The various substitute teachers, guest speakers, and visiting experts who cycle through South Park Elementary represent different facets of adult dysfunction and incompetence. From celebrities with hidden agendas to government agents conducting secret experiments, these figures demonstrate how children become unwilling subjects in adult power struggles and ideological conflicts. The students' adaptation to these constantly changing authority figures reflects their growing awareness that adult guidance cannot be trusted consistently. The school's academic programs, from sex education classes that traumatize students to history lessons that ignore inconvenient facts, satirize real educational controversies while highlighting how political pressures distort educational content. Teachers find themselves caught between competing demands from parents, administrators, and government officials, resulting in curriculum that serves political purposes rather than educational ones. Principal Victoria's eventual replacement by PC Principal represents the series' commentary on how educational institutions adapt to changing social expectations. The transition from traditional authoritarian leadership to politically correct administrative approaches demonstrates how superficial policy changes often fail to address underlying systemic problems while creating new forms of institutional dysfunction. The cafeteria, playground, and classroom dynamics at South Park Elementary reveal how social hierarchies, economic disparities, and cultural conflicts play out in educational settings. Students navigate complex social pressures while receiving minimal guidance from adults who are either absent, incompetent, or pursuing their own agendas at children's expense. Within South Park's complex mythological framework, few elements are as surprisingly nuanced as its treatment of religious themes and spiritual warfare. What initially appears to be simple, blasphemous comedy reveals itself as sophisticated theological commentary, with Satan himself emerging as one of the series' most unexpectedly sympathetic and psychologically complex characters. The show's exploration of religious mythology transcends mere satire to examine fundamental questions about good, evil, redemption, and the nature of spiritual authority in contemporary society. Satan's characterization in South Park represents perhaps the most radical reinterpretation of biblical mythology in popular culture. Rather than the traditional embodiment of pure evil, South Park's Satan emerges as a tragic figure struggling with self-doubt, relationship issues, and genuine desire for personal growth. His romantic entanglements, particularly his abusive relationship with Saddam Hussein, reveal him as someone capable of both love and victimization. This portrayal challenges conventional religious narratives by suggesting that even the ultimate symbol of evil possesses the capacity for emotional vulnerability and moral development. The Satan-Saddam Hussein relationship serves multiple narrative functions beyond simple shock value. Their dynamic explores themes of domestic abuse, codependency, and the psychology of toxic relationships with surprising emotional depth. Satan's inability to escape Saddam's manipulation despite possessing ultimate supernatural power illustrates how emotional abuse can paralyze even the strongest individuals. Saddam's exploitation of Satan's insecurities and desire for affection demonstrates sophisticated understanding of manipulative relationship dynamics that resonates with real-world experiences of abuse survivors. This relationship also functions as political commentary on the nature of evil in the modern world. By portraying a historical dictator as more fundamentally corrupt than the literal devil, the series suggests that human evil often surpasses supernatural malevolence in its capacity for causing suffering. Saddam's purely selfish motivations contrast with Satan's genuine emotional needs, implying that calculated human cruelty represents a more dangerous form of evil than supernatural rebellion against divine authority. The hierarchy of hell presented in South Park reveals a bureaucratic structure that mirrors earthly institutions, complete with office politics, performance reviews, and administrative inefficiency. This portrayal transforms hell from a place of eternal punishment into a dysfunctional workplace, where even damnation becomes mundane routine. The demons under Satan's command display the same petty concerns and interpersonal conflicts found in any large organization, suggesting that evil itself becomes institutionalized and bureaucratized when organized into formal structures. Satan's relationship with religious authority figures, particularly his interactions with Jesus Christ, demonstrates the series' complex approach to traditional theological concepts. Their friendship transcends traditional good versus evil dichotomies, suggesting that spiritual warfare might be more about personal growth and mutual understanding than cosmic conflict. Jesus' acceptance of Satan as a flawed individual rather than an irredeemable enemy reflects themes of forgiveness and redemption that align with core Christian teachings while subverting expected religious narratives. The series' treatment of organized religion reveals deep skepticism about institutional faith while maintaining respect for genuine spiritual seeking. Various religious figures, from Catholic priests to evangelical ministers, consistently demonstrate more concern with earthly power and material gain than spiritual guidance. This critique extends beyond simple anti-religious sentiment to examine how religious institutions often fail to embody the values they claim to represent. The recurring theme of religious hypocrisy manifests through characters who use faith as justification for personal agendas rather than genuine spiritual practice. Parents who invoke religious authority to support their prejudices, politicians who manipulate religious imagery for electoral gain, and religious leaders who exploit their followers' faith for personal benefit all demonstrate how institutional religion can become corrupted by human weakness and selfish ambition. South Park's exploration of different religious traditions reveals sophisticated understanding of comparative theology and religious studies. Episodes dealing with Scientology, Mormonism, Islam, Judaism, and various Christian denominations demonstrate extensive research into actual religious beliefs and practices. The series' criticism focuses not on the theological content of these traditions, but on how they function as social and political institutions that often prioritize earthly concerns over spiritual ones. The concept of spiritual warfare in South Park extends beyond traditional religious frameworks to encompass broader conflicts between different worldviews and value systems. The ongoing tension between scientific rationalism and religious faith, between individual freedom and collective responsibility, between traditional values and progressive change, all manifest as spiritual conflicts that shape characters' moral development and social relationships. The series' treatment of prayer, miracles, and divine intervention maintains careful ambiguity about the existence and nature of supernatural forces. While clearly supernatural events occur regularly, their origins and meanings remain open to interpretation. This ambiguity allows viewers to project their own theological beliefs onto the narrative while encouraging critical thinking about the relationship between faith and reason. The role of religious education in South Park reflects broader cultural debates about the appropriate place of faith in public discourse and educational curricula. Episodes dealing with evolution versus creationism, sex education informed by religious values, and the influence of religious groups on school policy all examine how competing worldviews struggle for cultural dominance through educational institutions. Satan's eventual character development toward greater self-awareness and emotional maturity suggests that redemption remains possible even for those who have committed the gravest sins. His journey from manipulative relationship patterns toward healthier emotional expression demonstrates themes of personal growth that transcend traditional religious categories of salvation and damnation. The series' exploration of afterlife concepts, from heaven and hell to reincarnation and spiritual transcendence, reflects contemporary religious pluralism while maintaining skepticism about dogmatic certainty. Different characters' experiences with death and spiritual revelation suggest that ultimate truth may be more complex and individualized than any single religious tradition acknowledges. The integration of religious themes with South Park's broader social commentary demonstrates how spiritual questions inevitably intersect with political, economic, and cultural issues. Religious belief systems influence characters' responses to social problems, while social pressures shape how religious faith develops and expresses itself in contemporary society. South Park's relationship with celebrity culture represents one of its most distinctive and controversial storytelling approaches, transforming real public figures into fictional characters who often suffer humiliating or tragic fates within the show's universe. This unique integration of reality and fiction creates a form of social commentary that transcends traditional satire, offering real-time criticism of contemporary culture while exploring deeper themes about fame, media manipulation, and society's complex relationship with celebrity worship. The series' approach to celebrity integration operates on multiple levels simultaneously. On the surface, these appearances serve as immediate cultural commentary, allowing the show to respond to current events and public controversies with remarkable speed and precision. However, the deeper function of celebrity episodes lies in their exploration of how fame distorts both the famous individuals themselves and the society that creates and consumes celebrity culture. Britney Spears' portrayal in Britney's New Look exemplifies the series' most sophisticated celebrity commentary. Rather than simply mocking Spears' personal struggles, the episode reveals the media and public as complicit in a ritualistic sacrifice of young women for entertainment purposes. The revelation that society requires periodic celebrity destructions to maintain psychological equilibrium transforms what initially appears to be cruel humor into profound social criticism. Spears becomes a tragic figure trapped by forces beyond her control, while the public's insatiable appetite for celebrity downfall emerges as the true villain. This episode establishes a pattern that recurs throughout the series. Celebrities are not the primary targets of criticism, but rather symbols of broader societal dysfunction. The media's role in manufacturing and then destroying public figures reflects real-world entertainment industry practices while examining the psychological needs that celebrity culture fulfills for ordinary people. The series suggests that celebrity worship serves as a form of collective scapegoating, allowing society to project its anxieties and frustrations onto public figures, who then suffer consequences for collective psychological problems. Kanye West's appearances throughout various episodes demonstrate the series' ability to track celebrity evolution over time while exploring themes of artistic genius, mental health, and racial dynamics in entertainment. The Gay Fish episode transforms West's public persona into a metaphor for artistic self-delusion and the disconnect between creative vision and public reception. However, later episodes reveal more sympathetic understanding of West's struggles with mental health and the pressures of maintaining artistic authenticity within commercial entertainment systems. The series' treatment of West evolves from simple mockery to complex character study, reflecting broader cultural conversations about mental health, artistic expression, and the responsibilities of public platforms. This evolution demonstrates South Park's capacity for growth and reconsideration, suggesting that even its most harsh celebrity portrayals can develop nuance and empathy over time. Religious and political figures receive particularly intense scrutiny through South Park's celebrity lens. The series' portrayal of figures like Tom Cruise, John Travolta, and other Scientology celebrities explores the intersection of fame, wealth, and religious authority. These episodes examine how celebrity status can be leveraged to promote controversial belief systems while questioning the motivations of both the celebrities themselves and the institutions they represent. Political figures from across the ideological spectrum find themselves subjected to South Park's satirical treatment, often revealing the series' underlying skepticism about power and authority regardless of political affiliation. The show's celebrity politicians are typically portrayed as either incompetent buffoons or calculating manipulators, reflecting broader distrust of political institutions and the media systems that support them. The series' treatment of celebrity death reveals particularly dark insights into contemporary media culture. Episodes dealing with deceased celebrities often focus more on public and media reactions than on the individuals themselves, examining how death transforms public figures into symbols that can be manipulated for various purposes. The speed with which society moves from mourning to exploitation of celebrity deaths becomes a recurring theme that highlights the superficial nature of parasocial relationships. Celebrity children receive special attention in South Park's commentary, with figures like Paris Hilton serving as symbols of inherited fame and its psychological consequences. These portrayals explore how celebrity culture perpetuates itself across generations, while examining the specific damages inflicted on individuals who never chose public attention but inherited it through family circumstances. The series' celebrity cameos often function as Trojan horses for broader social criticism. An episode ostensibly about a particular celebrity frequently reveals itself as commentary on media consolidation, corporate influence, political corruption, or other systemic issues that extend far beyond individual public figures. This approach allows the show to address complex social problems through familiar cultural references that make abstract issues concrete and accessible. The psychological impact of celebrity culture on ordinary people receives extensive exploration through South Park's celebrity episodes. Characters' reactions to meeting famous individuals reveal how celebrity worship distorts normal social relationships and creates unrealistic expectations about personal fulfillment through parasocial connections. The series consistently demonstrates how celebrity culture promises vicarious experiences that ultimately leave consumers feeling empty and disconnected from authentic human relationships. South Park's celebrity commentary also examines the economic structures that support fame and entertainment industries. Episodes dealing with celebrity endorsements, product placements, and media consolidation reveal how celebrity culture functions as a marketing system designed to promote consumption rather than genuine cultural enrichment. The series suggests that celebrity worship serves primarily corporate interests while providing ordinary people with distractions from more pressing social and political concerns. The international dimensions of celebrity culture receive attention through episodes dealing with global entertainment figures and cross-cultural celebrity phenomenon. These episodes explore how American celebrity culture exports itself worldwide while examining how different societies adapt and resist celebrity influence. The series suggests that celebrity culture functions as a form of cultural imperialism that homogenizes diverse societies around consumption-oriented values. The temporal aspects of celebrity culture emerge through episodes that track how public figures rise and fall within media attention cycles. The series demonstrates how celebrity status depends more on media coverage than actual achievement, while exploring how technological changes accelerate both celebrity creation and destruction. Social media's impact on celebrity culture receives particular attention as the series adapts to changing media landscapes. The Underpants Gnomes episode stands as one of South Park's most enduring contributions to popular culture, introducing a business strategy meme that has transcended the show itself to become shorthand for flawed corporate logic and questionable economic planning. However, Beneath the surface humor of tiny creatures stealing underwear lies a sophisticated critique of capitalism, corporate culture, and the absurd reasoning that often drives business decisions in contemporary America. The Gnome's infamous three-phase business plan perfectly encapsulates the magical thinking that pervades much of modern business culture. This formula reveals how many corporate strategies rely on assumption and wishful thinking rather than logical progression from cause to effect. The missing phase 2 represents the gap between ambitious goals and practical implementation that characterizes countless failed business ventures, dot-com bubbles, and economic schemes that promise revolutionary change without explaining how that change will actually occur. The episode's broader context involves a school assignment about corporate presentations, forcing fourth graders to engage with business concepts they cannot fully comprehend. This educational framework reflects real-world pressures to introduce children to economic thinking at increasingly young ages, often without providing them with sufficient context to understand the ethical and practical implications of business practices. The children's struggle to create a meaningful presentation mirrors society's broader confusion about how economic systems actually function versus how they are supposed to function according to theoretical models. The Harbucks coffee storyline that frames the Underpants Gnome's discovery serves as direct commentary on corporate consolidation and the destruction of small businesses by large chains. The fictional coffee company's arrival in South Park represents the homogenization of American communities through corporate expansion. While the local coffee shops struggle for survival illustrates how independent businesses are systematically eliminated by competitors with superior resources and marketing capabilities. The parents' response to the Harbucks situation reveals the complex psychology of consumer behavior and community loyalty. Despite expressing support for local businesses in principle, they consistently choose convenience and familiarity over community investment. This behavioral contradiction demonstrates how individual consumer choices, when aggregated, can produce collective outcomes that nobody actually desires, such as the destruction of local business communities and the standardization of commercial experiences. The Underpants Gnomes themselves represent the absurdity of economic activity divorced from practical purpose or social benefit. Their industrious collection of underwear serves no comprehensible function, yet they pursue it with dedication and organizational efficiency that rivals legitimate businesses. This parallel suggests that much of contemporary economic activity may be equally purposeless, driven more by the momentum of established systems than by genuine human needs or rational planning. The Gnome's underground civilization reveals a complex society built around fundamentally irrational economic activity. Their elaborate infrastructure, social hierarchies, and cultural traditions all support an enterprise that produces no discernible value for anyone, including themselves. This societal structure serves as metaphor for how entire industries and economic sectors can develop around activities that benefit no one while consuming enormous resources and human energy. The revelation that the Gnomes have been operating their business for generations without ever defining phase 2 suggests institutional inertia and the power of tradition to perpetuate meaningless activities. Organizations often continue practices simply because they have always done them, even when the original rationale has been forgotten or proven invalid. The Gnomes' inability to question their fundamental business model reflects how corporate cultures can become self-perpetuating systems that resist logical evaluation or necessary change. The episode's treatment of the children's relationship with the adult business world reveals the disconnect between economic theory and practical experience. The fourth graders' confusion about corporate presentations mirrors average citizens' bewilderment when confronted with complex economic explanations that seem designed more to obscure than illuminate actual business practices. The series suggests that much business communication functions primarily to create impressions of competence and sophistication rather than to convey useful information. The temporal aspects of the Underpants Gnomes operation highlight questions about sustainability and long-term planning in business culture. Their multi-generational commitment to Phase 1 without progress toward Phase 3 reflects how many companies and industries operate on assumptions about future profitability that may never materialize. The dot-com boom, housing bubbles, and various speculative markets all demonstrate real-world examples of the underpants gnome's business model in action. The class dynamics evident in the coffee shop conflict reveal how corporate consolidation affects different socioeconomic groups differently. While middle-class consumers may view chain stores as convenient options, small business owners face existential threats to their livelihoods and identities. The episode explores how economic changes that appear beneficial to consumers can destroy the economic foundations of entire communities, creating winners and losers in ways that are not immediately apparent to those making purchasing decisions. The gnome's organizational structure suggests commentary on corporate hierarchy and specialization. Different gnomes perform different functions within their underwear collection operation, demonstrating division of labor and management structures that mirror legitimate businesses. However, the purposelessness of their overall enterprise highlights how sophisticated organizational systems can be applied to fundamentally irrational objectives, creating the appearance of meaningful activity while producing no actual value. The episode's resolution, where the children learn to appreciate both local businesses and corporate efficiency, attempt to find middle ground in economic debates that often become polarized between pro-business and anti-corporate positions. This nuanced conclusion suggests that economic systems are neither inherently good nor evil, but depend on how they are implemented and regulated to serve human needs rather than abstract financial goals. Established cultural patterns. The series' supernatural creatures ultimately serve as externalized representations of internal psychological and social conflicts that cannot be resolved through rational discourse or conventional problem-solving approaches. They provide safe spaces for exploring taboo subjects, confronting suppressed fears, and examining the limitations of adult authority and institutional competence in addressing complex contemporary challenges. The institutional authority figures of South Park represent a comprehensive failure of the systems designed to protect and serve the community, revealing a town where incompetence, corruption, and willful negligence have become so normalized that residents barely register their existence. This systematic breakdown of civic responsibility creates an environment where children must repeatedly save themselves and their community from threats that adults either cannot or will not address, reflecting broader anxieties about institutional decay in contemporary American society. Sergeant Harrison Yates epitomizes law enforcement incompetence elevated to the level of dangerous parody. His consistent ability to reach incorrect conclusions despite overwhelming evidence suggests more than simple professional inadequacy. It reveals a mindset where maintaining existing power structures takes precedence over actual justice or public safety. Yates's investigations routinely target convenient scapegoats rather than actual perpetrators, demonstrating how law enforcement can become a tool for reinforcing social prejudices rather than protecting vulnerable community members. The South Park Police Department's approach to criminal investigation follows patterns that prioritize case closure over truth-seeking, reflecting real-world concerns about police performance metrics that reward arrests and convictions regardless of their accuracy or justice. Their tendency to arrest minorities for crimes committed by white perpetrators reveals how institutional bias can systematically misdirect law enforcement resources while failing to address actual criminal behavior. Yates's personal psychology reveals the dangerous combination of authority, incompetence, and unwillingness to admit error that characterizes failed leadership in many institutional contexts. His confident presentation of incorrect conclusions demonstrates how institutional authority can persist despite repeated failures when accountability mechanisms are absent or ineffective. The community's acceptance of his incompetence suggests a broader resignation to institutional failure that prevents necessary reforms. The federal government's presence in South Park typically manifests through various agencies that combine massive resources with fundamental misunderstanding of local conditions and actual threats. Government agents consistently arrive after crises have already been resolved by the children, yet attempt to take credit for outcomes they did not produce, while imposing solutions that often create new problems. This pattern reflects skepticism about federal intervention in local affairs and the disconnect between bureaucratic processes and community needs. Government cover-ups and conspiracies in South Park follow predictable patterns where agencies prioritize secrecy and damage control over public safety or transparency. The recurring theme of government officials suppressing evidence of supernatural events or alien contact demonstrates how institutional self-preservation can override public interest considerations. These cover-ups often prove counterproductive, creating more problems than they solve while undermining public trust in official explanations. The series' portrayal of government scientific research reveals concerns about ethical oversight and the potential for institutional authority to justify harmful experimentation on unwilling subjects. Episodes dealing with government research facilities often show scientists and officials who have become so removed from ethical considerations that they treat human subjects as experimental materials rather than people deserving protection and respect. Local government officials in South Park display the same patterns of incompetence and self-interest that characterize other authority figures, but with the added dimension of being directly accountable to the community they serve. Mayor McDaniels represents well-intentioned leadership undermined by poor judgment and susceptibility to special interests, while other city officials often pursue personal agendas that conflict with community welfare. The town council's decision-making processes reveal how democratic institutions can be manipulated by loud minorities or special interests that do not represent broader community values. Their tendency to make dramatic policy changes in response to temporary crises demonstrates the instability that can result from reactive rather than principled governance. The community's general apathy toward local government creates power vacuums that allow incompetent or corrupt officials to operate without meaningful oversight. School administration represents another layer of failed authority, where officials responsible for child welfare consistently prioritize bureaucratic concerns over student safety and educational quality. Principal Victoria's eventual replacement demonstrates how institutional change often focuses on superficial policy adjustments rather than addressing underlying competence and accountability issues. The series' treatment of regulatory agencies reveals how bureaucratic processes can become ends in themselves rather than means of achieving public welfare objectives. Health inspectors, environmental regulators, and other oversight officials often focus more on procedural compliance than substantive outcomes, creating systems that reward paperwork completion over actual problem solving. Military authority figures in South Park episodes typically combine excessive force with poor judgment, representing concerns about militarization of civilian law enforcement and the inappropriate application of military solutions to civilian problems. Their interventions often escalate situations unnecessarily while failing to address underlying causes of conflict or instability. The pattern of authority figure failures in South Park extends beyond individual incompetence to encompass systemic problems with institutional design and accountability. The series suggests that current institutional structures may be fundamentally inadequate for addressing contemporary challenges, requiring not just better personnel, but different approaches to organizing collective response to social problems. The children's consistent success in resolving crises that stymie adult authorities reflects both their freedom from institutional constraints and their willingness to approach problems pragmatically rather than bureaucratically. Their solutions often involve direct action and cooperation across social boundaries that adult institutions reinforce through their operational procedures and cultural assumptions. The community's adaptation to institutional failure demonstrates remarkable resilience, as residents develop informal networks and coping mechanisms that compensate for official inadequacy. However, this adaptation also enables continued institutional dysfunction by reducing pressure for necessary reforms, creating stable equilibrium around failed systems. The series' portrayal of authority figures serves as comprehensive critique of how institutions can become self-perpetuating systems that prioritize their own continuation over their stated missions. The consistent failure of official responses to community threats suggests that institutional reform may require fundamental changes in how authority is structured, exercised, and held accountable to the people it supposedly serves. The various youth subcultures that populate South Park Elementary and the broader community serve as more than simple background characters or comedic diversions. They represent the complex ways that adolescents navigate identity formation, social belonging, and the search for authentic self-expression in a world that often feels hostile to genuine individuality. These groups function as mirrors reflecting both the universal struggles of growing up and the specific cultural pressures that shape contemporary youth experience. The goth kids emerge as South Park's most philosophically coherent subculture, maintaining consistent worldviews and behavioral patterns that distinguish them from mainstream peer groups, while providing commentary on adolescent alienation and intellectual pretension. Their commitment to darkness, poetry, and existential angst reflects genuine psychological needs for meaning and identity that conventional social structures fail to address. However, their rigid adherence to subcultural rules and their dismissive attitude toward other forms of expression reveal how alternative identity groups can become as conformist and exclusive as the mainstream culture they reject. The goth kids' relationship with coffee culture, literature, and artistic expression demonstrates sophisticated understanding of how aesthetic choices function as identity markers and social signals. Their preference for coffee shops over traditional teen hangouts reflects desire for adult sophistication and intellectual engagement, while their poetry and artistic pursuits represent attempts to transform adolescent emotional intensity into meaningful creative expression. These behaviors suggest that subcultural participation can serve positive developmental functions when it provides outlets for creativity and intellectual exploration. Their interactions with other student groups reveal the complex hierarchies and territorial disputes that characterize youth social dynamics. The goth kids' particular disdain for posers and mainstream trends reflects both genuine aesthetic preferences and deeper anxieties about authenticity and social acceptance. Their need to distinguish themselves from similar groups like the vampire kids demonstrates how subcultural identity often depends more on establishing differences than on shared positive values or interests. The vampire kids phenomenon represents the intersection of subcultural identity with consumer culture and media influence, showing how youth movements can be simultaneously authentic expressions of adolescent needs and manufacture trends designed to exploit those needs for commercial purposes. Their emergence coincides with popular vampire-themed entertainment, suggesting that subcultural formation increasingly occurs through interaction with media products rather than organic community development. The conflict between goth kids and vampire kids illustrates how subcultural authenticity becomes contested terrain where different groups compete for legitimacy and cultural authority. The goths' claim to superior authenticity based on their longer historical presence reflects broader patterns in youth culture where established groups resist newcomers who might dilute their distinctive identity or appropriate their aesthetic choices without understanding their deeper significance. The series' treatment of the vampire trend reveals skepticism about how quickly media influences can reshape youth identity and behavior. The rapid adoption of vampire aesthetics and behaviors by mainstream students suggests vulnerability to cultural manipulation, while the equally rapid abandonment of these trends when they lose novelty demonstrates the superficial nature of media-driven identity formation compared to more organic subcultural development. Emo culture receives particular attention as a subculture that combines genuine emotional expression with performative suffering, creating complex dynamics around mental health, artistic expression, and social attention-seeking. The series explores how emo identity can serve both therapeutic and destructive functions, providing outlets for difficult emotions while potentially reinforcing negative thought patterns and self-destructive behaviors. The portrayal of emo culture reflects broader cultural debates about adolescent mental health, the line between normal developmental struggles and clinical depression, and the role of peer groups in either supporting or undermining psychological well-being. Episodes dealing with emo characters often explore whether subcultural participation helps young people process difficult emotions or provides unhealthy reinforcement for depressive and self-destructive tendencies. Various other alternative subcultures that appear throughout the series, from punk rockers to metalheads to alternative lifestyle groups, demonstrate the diversity of ways that young people attempt to establish independent identities while finding community with like-minded peers. These groups often serve as testing grounds for values, aesthetics, and social relationships that may or may not persist into adulthood, functioning as temporary identities that allow experimentation with different aspects of personality and social connection. The series' treatment of subcultural fashion, music, and behavioral codes reveals understanding of how aesthetic choices function as complex communication systems that convey information about values, social allegiances, and individual identity to both in-group and out-group observers. The careful attention to subcultural details in character design and dialogue demonstrates recognition that these elements serve important psychological and social functions rather than simply representing superficial style choices. The relationship between subcultural participation and family dynamics receives extensive exploration, as alternative identity choices often create conflict with parents who interpret subcultural aesthetics as rebellion, mental health concerns, or rejection of family values. These conflicts reveal generational differences in understanding youth development and the appropriate balance between individual expression and family conformity. School authority figures' reactions to various subcultures demonstrate institutional challenges in responding to student diversity while maintaining order and educational focus. The series shows how school policies often fail to distinguish between harmless self-expression and genuinely problematic behavior, creating unnecessary conflict while failing to address actual disciplinary or safety concerns. The temporal aspects of subcultural participation receive attention through characters who move between different identity groups or gradually abandon subcultural affiliation as they mature. These transitions reveal how subcultural identity can serve developmental functions that become less necessary as individuals establish more stable adult identities and social relationships. The series ultimately portrays youth subcultures as complex phenomena that serve both positive and negative functions in adolescent development. While subcultural participation can provide community, creative outlets, and opportunities for identity exploration, it can also reinforce negative behaviors, create artificial social divisions, and substitute aesthetic rebellion for genuine personal growth and social engagement. Leopold Butters Stotch stands as South Park's most poignant representation of childhood innocence, attempting to survive in a world that seems specifically designed to corrupt, exploit, and destroy everything pure and hopeful about human nature. His character serves as both a mirror reflecting the cynicism of those around him and a beacon illuminating what authentic goodness looks like when it refuses to be extinguished by exposure to adult dysfunction and societal cruelty. Butters' unwavering optimism and genuine care for others creates a stark contrast to the calculated cynicism that characterizes most other characters in the series. While Stan, Kyle, Kenny, and Cartman have developed various coping mechanisms and defense strategies to deal with their chaotic environment, Butters continues to approach each new experience with openness and trust that seems almost supernatural in its persistence. This innocence isn't ignorance. Butters often demonstrates awareness of the darkness around him, but chooses to respond with kindness rather than matching cruelty with cruelty. The Stotch household represents one of South Park's most disturbing examples of parental dysfunction disguised as middle-class respectability. Stephen and Linda Stotch maintain facades of concerned parenting while subjecting their son to psychological abuse that would be recognized as torture if applied by strangers rather than family members. Their elaborate punishments, bizarre restrictions, and complete disconnection from Butter's actual emotional needs reveal how traditional family structures can become vehicles for systematic child abuse when parents prioritize their own psychological needs over their children's welfare. Stephen Stoch's particular brand of authoritarian parenting combines religious righteousness with barely controlled rage, creating an environment where Butters must navigate constantly shifting rules and expectations that seem designed more to satisfy his father's need for control than to provide meaningful guidance or protection. The arbitrary nature of Stephen's punishments, grounding Butters for infractions that exist only in Stephen's imagination, demonstrates how parental authority can become a form of tyranny when it operates without accountability or genuine concern for child development. Linda Stoch's passive complicity in her husband's abuse reveals how family dysfunction often involves multiple generations of learned helplessness and denial. Her occasional attempts to protect Butters are consistently undermined by her inability to confront her husband's behavior directly, creating a pattern where Butters receives mixed messages about safety, love, and family loyalty that complicate his ability to develop healthy relationship patterns. The series explores how Butters' home environment has shaped his personality in ways that are simultaneously adaptive and problematic. His excessive politeness and eagerness to please reflect survival strategies developed in response to unpredictable parental reactions, while his difficulty asserting boundaries or recognizing manipulation demonstrates how childhood trauma can create vulnerabilities that persist into other relationships and social contexts. Butters' alter ego as Professor Chaos represents his attempt to claim agency and power in a world where he typically experiences himself as helpless and victimized. However, even his villainous persona reflects his fundamentally gentle nature. Professor Chaos's schemes tend to involve minor inconveniences rather than genuine harm, suggesting that Butters cannot fully embrace destructive impulses even when adopting an explicitly evil identity. This character development reveals how deeply ingrained patterns of kindness and consideration can persist even when individuals attempt to rebel against their core nature. The relationship between Butters and the main group of boys illustrates how innocence can serve both protective and isolating functions in social relationships. While his genuine kindness often makes him a target for Cartman's manipulation and exploitation, it also creates moments of unexpected moral clarity that force other characters to confront their own ethical compromises. Butters' reactions to various schemes and conflicts often highlight the moral dimensions that other characters prefer to ignore or rationalize away. Butters' romantic relationships and crushes reveal how his damaged home environment has affected his understanding of love, intimacy, and appropriate relationship dynamics. His tendency to idealize romantic partners and his difficulty recognizing unhealthy relationship patterns reflect the confusion that results from growing up in a household where love is conditional, unpredictable, and often indistinguishable from abuse. The series uses Butters' character to explore questions about the relationship between innocence and wisdom, suggesting that maintaining kindness and openness in the face of repeated betrayal and disappointment may represent a form of courage rather than naivety. His ability to continue caring about others despite experiencing consistent mistreatment demonstrates emotional resilience that transcends simple optimism to encompass genuine moral strength. Butters' interactions with authority figures beyond his family reveal how his home experiences have shaped his responses to all forms of adult authority. His excessive deference to teachers, police officers, and other officials demonstrates how childhood abuse can create patterns of submission that extend far beyond the original abusive relationship, making victims vulnerable to exploitation by various authority figures throughout their lives. The economic dimensions of the Stoch family situation reveal how middle-class respectability can mask dysfunction and abuse that might be more readily recognized in families with fewer social resources. The family's suburban lifestyle and Stephen's professional success create protective camouflage that allows their dysfunction to persist without external intervention, highlighting how class privilege can enable child abuse by providing social credibility that deflects suspicion. Butters' creative expressions, from his artwork to his storytelling, often reveals sophisticated understanding of complex emotions and social dynamics that contrast with his surface presentation of simplicity and innocence. These creative outlets suggest that his apparent naivety may partly reflect conscious choices about how to respond to difficult experiences rather than genuine inability to understand the complexity of his situation. The series' long-term character development for Butters suggests gradual growth in self-awareness and assertiveness while maintaining his core kindness and optimism. His occasional moments of rebellion or self-advocacy demonstrate that innocence doesn't require complete passivity, and that maintaining goodness in a corrupt world may sometimes require active resistance to forces that would exploit or destroy that goodness. South Park's relationship with technological advancement serves as a real-time chronicle of how digital innovation transforms social relationships, childhood development, and community dynamics, often in ways that creators and users never anticipated. The series has consistently positioned itself at the forefront of technological commentary, examining each new digital trend not just as a tool or entertainment medium, but as a force capable of fundamentally altering human behavior and social structures. The early internet episodes capture the peculiar combination of utopian promise and dystopian reality that characterized the web's initial mainstream adoption. The series portrayed the internet as simultaneously offering unlimited access to information and human connection, while creating new forms of isolation, addiction, and social dysfunction. These early explorations proved remarkably prescient, identifying patterns of online behavior and social media dynamics that would become central concerns of digital culture decades later. The introduction of social networking platforms into South Park's universe revealed the series' creators' sophisticated understanding of how digital technologies reshape identity formation and social validation systems. Episodes dealing with Facebook, Twitter, and other platforms explored how online personas can become more important than authentic self-expression, creating psychological pressures that particularly affect young people who are already struggling with identity development and peer acceptance. The series' treatment of cyberbullying and online harassment demonstrate awareness that digital technologies amplify existing social problems rather than simply creating new ones. The anonymity and distance provided by online communication can intensify cruel behaviors that might be moderated by face-to-face interaction, while the permanent nature of digital communication creates lasting consequences for momentary lapses in judgment or emotional regulation. Stan's depression during his social media storylines reflects broader concerns about how constant connectivity and social comparison affect mental health and emotional development. The pressure to maintain online personas that generate likes, shares, and positive feedback creates exhausting performance demands that can leave individuals feeling disconnected from their authentic selves and genuine relationships. The series explores how social media platforms exploit psychological vulnerabilities and behavioral patterns that evolve for face-to-face social environments, but become problematic when applied to digital contexts. The dopamine rewards associated with social media engagement create addiction-like patterns that can interfere with other activities and relationships, while algorithmic content curation can create echo chambers that reinforce existing beliefs and prevent exposure to diverse perspectives. Gaming culture receives extensive treatment throughout the series, from early episodes dealing with arcade culture through more recent explorations of online gaming communities and competitive esports. These storylines examine how gaming can serve both positive and negative functions in social development, providing opportunities for skill development, strategic thinking, and community building, while also creating potential for addiction, social isolation, and exposure to toxic online behaviors. The World of Warcraft episode stands as perhaps the series' most comprehensive exploration of gaming addiction and its impact on physical health, social relationships, and psychological well-being. The extreme physical deterioration and social isolation experienced by the hardcore gamer character serves as metaphor for how digital escapism can become self-destructive when it replaces rather than supplements real-world activities and relationships. Randy Marsh's various encounters with technology often serve as commentary on how adults adapt to digital innovations differently than children, sometimes with particularly problematic results. His social media misadventures and technology-related schemes reflect broader patterns of middle-aged technology adoption that combine enthusiasm for new possibilities with insufficient understanding of social norms and potential consequences. The series' treatment of online privacy and surveillance reflects growing awareness of how digital technologies enable unprecedented monitoring and data collection by both government agencies and private corporations. Episodes dealing with government surveillance often explore how convenience and security concerns can justify privacy intrusions that previous generations would have found unacceptable. The evolution of childhood experiences in digital environments receives consistent attention throughout the series, examining how children who grow up with constant internet access develop different social skills, attention patterns, and relationship expectations than previous generations. The series suggests that digital nativity provides certain advantages while potentially creating deficits in areas like face-to-face communication, sustained attention, and emotional regulation. The commodification of personal information and online relationships emerges as a recurring theme, with episodes exploring how social media platforms, gaming companies, and other digital services monetize user data and behavioral patterns in ways that users often don't fully understand or consent to meaningfully. The series reveals how free digital services often involve hidden costs in terms of privacy, attention, and psychological manipulation. The impact of constant connectivity on family relationships and community bonds receives extensive exploration, with storylines examining how digital technologies can both strengthen and weaken social connections depending on how they are used. The series suggests that technology itself is neutral, but its integration into social systems can either support or undermine human flourishing depending on how it is designed and regulated. The series' treatment of digital divides and technology access reveals awareness that technological advancement doesn't benefit all community members equally. Episodes dealing with economic barriers to technology access, generational differences in digital literacy, and cultural resistance to technological change demonstrate understanding that technology adoption involves complex social and economic factors beyond simple availability. The evolution of online harassment and hate speech receives particular attention as the series tracks how digital platforms can amplify and organize prejudice and cruelty in ways that exceed the capacity of individual moderators or community standards to control effectively. These storylines explore how technological affordances can enable coordination of harassment campaigns that would be impossible to organize through traditional communication methods. The series' most recent technology-focused episodes demonstrate continued engagement with emerging digital trends while maintaining consistent themes about the need for balance between digital innovation and human welfare. The ongoing exploration of how artificial intelligence, virtual reality, and other emerging technologies might reshape social relationships suggests that South Park will continue serving as a cultural barometer for technological change and its social consequences. The musical episodes of South Park represent some of the series' most ambitious artistic achievements, transforming the show's satirical voice into sophisticated theatrical experiences that combine catchy melodies, elaborate choreography, and pointed social commentary into seamless entertainment packages. These episodes demonstrate how music can serve satirical purposes that transcend traditional narrative storytelling, allowing complex ideas and emotions to be expressed through song in ways that feel both entertaining and intellectually satisfying. The Christmas episodes established the template for South Park's musical ambitions, beginning with simple holiday songs that gradually evolved into elaborate musical productions rivaling professional Broadway shows in their complexity and emotional impact. Mr. Hankey's Christmas Classics introduced the concept of South Park characters as musical performers while maintaining the irreverent humor that characterizes the series. But subsequent Christmas specials revealed increasing sophistication in both musical composition and thematic development. The integration of original songs into regular episodes demonstrates the creator's understanding of how music can amplify satirical messages while making them more memorable and emotionally resonant. Songs like Chocolate Salty Balls and Uncle Fucka function as both crude humor and sophisticated commentary on censorship, artistic expression, and the arbitrary nature of moral outrage in contemporary culture. These musical moments transform potentially preachy satirical points into entertaining experiences that audiences remember and repeat. The South Park movie, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut, represents the series' most comprehensive musical achievement, structuring an entire feature-length narrative around songs that advance both plot and thematic development, while maintaining the series' characteristic irreverence and social commentary. The film's exploration of censorship, parental responsibility, and cultural hysteria gains additional emotional weight through musical numbers that allow characters to express complex feelings and motivations that might seem forced or artificial in purely dialogue-driven scenes. The movie's use of musical theater conventions demonstrates sophisticated understanding of how different artistic forms can be combined and subverted for satirical purposes. Traditional Broadway song structures are maintained while their content subverts audience expectations, creating comedy through the contrast between familiar musical forms and unexpected lyrical content. This approach allows the series to critique both the subjects of its songs and the musical theater traditions it employs. The recurring use of musical montages and song sequences in regular episodes serves multiple narrative functions beyond simple entertainment value. Musical segments can compress time, convey emotional states, provide exposition, and offer commentary on ongoing action simultaneously, making them efficient storytelling tools that enhance rather than interrupt narrative flow. The series' musical sequences often reveal character thoughts and motivations that would be difficult to express through dialogue alone. The variety of musical styles employed throughout the series reflects both the creator's musical knowledge and their understanding of how different genres carry cultural associations and emotional resonances that can be exploited for satirical purposes. Country music, rap, pop, rock, classical, and various international musical styles all appear in South Park episodes, each bringing its own cultural baggage and audience expectations that can be confirmed, subverted, or complicated for comedic and satirical effect. The series' treatment of the music industry itself provides commentary on artistic integrity, commercial pressures, and a relationship between creative expression and market demands. Episodes dealing with boy bands, record labels, and music celebrities explore how the industry shapes artistic output while examining the psychological costs of fame and commercial success for individual artists. The recurring character of Chef represents the series' most sustained exploration of musical culture and its relationship to community identity and social commentary. His songs typically combine sexual innuendo with life lessons, creating a character who uses music to navigate complex social situations while providing guidance and wisdom to the children who seek his advice. Chef's musical style reflects his cultural background while serving broader narrative functions as a source of adult wisdom and community connection. The integration of dance and choreography into musical episodes demonstrates understanding of how physical performance can enhance musical storytelling while providing visual comedy that complements lyrical content. The contrast between elaborate dance sequences and the show's typically simple animation style creates additional layers of humor, while showcasing the creator's commitment to making musical episodes feel like genuine theatrical experiences. The series' exploration of school, musical productions, and talent shows provides commentary on educational approaches to artistic expression while examining how communities use performance to reinforce or challenge existing social hierarchies and cultural values. These episodes often reveal tensions between artistic merit and social acceptance, exploring how creative expression can serve both individual and community needs. The use of music in South Park's more serious or emotional episodes demonstrates how songs can provide emotional release and catharsis that might feel inappropriate or forced in purely dramatic contexts. Musical numbers allow characters to express vulnerability, hope, and genuine emotion while maintaining the series' overall tone and avoiding the sentimentality that might undermine its satirical credibility. The technical aspects of South Park's musical production reveal increasing sophistication over the series' run, with later musical episodes featuring more complex arrangements, better integration of music and animation, and more ambitious choreographic sequences. This evolution demonstrates the creators' growing confidence in musical storytelling and their willingness to invest resources in musical production values. The cultural impact of South Park's musical episodes extends beyond the series itself, with many songs becoming popular independently and influencing broader conversations about the topics they address. The memorability of musical content allows South Park's satirical messages to persist in popular culture long after individual episodes have aired, giving musical episodes particular power as vehicles for social commentary. The series' approach to musical parody and homage demonstrates sophisticated understanding of musical history and genres, allowing episodes to function simultaneously as entertainment for general audiences and as more complex commentary for viewers with deeper musical knowledge. This layered approach creates multiple levels of appreciation while maintaining accessibility for diverse audience segments. The evolution of South Park's musical ambitions reflects broader changes in television production and audience expectations, as musical episodes have become more common and sophisticated across various animated and live-action series, partly influenced by South Park's demonstration of how musical content can enhance rather than interrupt satirical storytelling. As South Park enters its third decade of continuous production, the series finds itself in the unique position of being both a historical artifact of late 20th century culture and an active participant in contemporary social discourse. This temporal spanning creates fascinating tensions and opportunities, as storylines and character development from the show's earlier years take on new meanings when viewed through the lens of current events, while new episodes must navigate the challenge of maintaining relevance and impact in an increasingly fragmented and rapidly changing media landscape. The series' remarkable longevity raises fundamental questions about how satirical content ages and evolves over time. Episodes that once felt cutting-edge or controversial may now seem dated or even problematic, while other storylines that appeared relatively minor when originally aired have gained significance as their satirical targets became more prominent in real-world discourse. This evolution creates a complex legacy where the series serves simultaneously as entertainment, historical document, and ongoing cultural commentary. Kenny's immortality storyline represents one of the most significant unresolved mysteries in the series' mythology, with his cosmic purpose and the full implications of his resurrection cycle remaining largely unexplored despite decades of hints and partial revelations. The connection between his condition and South Park's cursed nature suggests larger supernatural forces at work that could provide material for future exploration, while his role as Mysterian offers opportunities to examine how childhood trauma and supernatural responsibility intersect in ways that affect both individual development and community welfare. Cartman's psychological evolution continues to fascinate viewers and critics alike, as his character has developed from simple antagonist to complex study in sociopathic behavior and its social consequences. The revelation of his parentage and its connection to his most heinous acts creates ongoing questions about nature versus nurture in criminal behavior, while his relationships with other characters continue to evolve in ways that test the boundaries of friendship, loyalty, and moral responsibility. The Scott Tenorman incident's long-term psychological impact on Cartman remains largely unexplored, despite its significance as a watershed moment in his moral development. The question of whether Cartman is capable of genuine remorse, growth, or redemption continues to inform his character development, while his influence on other characters raises questions about how prolonged exposure to manipulative and abusive behavior affects psychological development and moral reasoning. Stan's recurring episodes of depression and cynicism reflect broader cultural conversations about mental health, particularly in young people who have grown up during periods of significant social and political upheaval. His character serves as a vehicle for exploring how individual psychological health intersects with broader social dysfunction, while his relationships with family members continue to evolve as the series explores intergenerational trauma and communication patterns. Kyle's role as the group's moral center becomes increasingly complex as the series addresses more sophisticated ethical dilemmas that resist simple resolution. His Jewish identity and family background continue to provide rich material for exploring religious and cultural themes, while his friendship dynamics with the other boys test his ability to maintain ethical principles while preserving important relationships. The supernatural elements of South Park's mythology remain largely unexplored territory, with ancient curses, alien observation, and various mystical forces continuing to influence events without receiving comprehensive explanation or resolution. This ongoing mystery creates opportunities for future episodes to delve deeper into the town's spiritual and cosmic significance, while maintaining the series' balance between supernatural adventure and grounded social commentary. The town's adults continue to demonstrate patterns of incompetence and dysfunction that create ongoing challenges for the children who must navigate complex social and moral situations without reliable guidance or protection. The institutional failures that characterize South Park's government, educational system, and law enforcement create persistent problems that resist easy solutions while providing ongoing material for satirical exploration. Technological evolution continues to reshape social relationships and cultural norms in ways that provide rich material for future episodes, as new platforms, applications, and digital behaviors create unprecedented challenges for individuals and communities attempting to maintain authentic human connections while adapting to rapidly changing communication technologies and social expectations. The series' approach to celebrity culture and current events faces ongoing challenges as the pace of cultural change accelerates and public attention spans decrease. The need to remain relevant and responsive to contemporary issues must be balanced against the series' longer-term character development and mythological consistency, creating creative tensions that could either enhance or complicate future storytelling efforts. Environmental themes and climate change concerns offer opportunities for the series to revisit and expand upon earlier storylines like Man, Bear, Pig, while exploring how environmental activism, scientific literacy, and political polarization intersect in ways that affect community, decision-making, and individual behavior. The series' previous treatment of environmental issues provides foundation for more sophisticated exploration of how communities respond to long-term challenges that require collective action and behavioral change. The economic dimensions of South Park's social commentary remain relevant as income inequality, technological disruption, and changing employment patterns continue to reshape American communities. The series' exploration of class dynamics, economic opportunity, and the relationship between individual choices and systemic constraints provides ongoing material for examining how economic forces affect family stability, community cohesion, and individual psychological development. The international dimensions of South Park's cultural commentary offer opportunities for exploring how American culture exports itself globally, while examining how global events and cultural movements influence local community dynamics. The series' treatment of immigration, cultural diversity, and international relations provides foundation for continued exploration of how local communities navigate increasing cultural complexity and global interconnection. The generational aspects of South Park's storytelling create unique opportunities as the series' original audience has aged alongside the characters, while new viewers encounter the series without the historical context that shaped its original development. This temporal layering creates possibilities for storytelling that speaks to multiple generations simultaneously while exploring how cultural values and social norms evolve over time. As we reach the end of our journey through South Park's complex mythology and cultural significance, it becomes clear that this small Colorado mountain town represents far more than simple animated comedy or satirical entertainment. The interconnected web of supernatural curses, family dysfunction, institutional failure, and childhood resilience that defines South Park creates a comprehensive portrait of contemporary American society that manages to be simultaneously absurd and profound, cruel and compassionate, cynical and hopeful. The ancient Native American curse that underlies the town's supernatural nature serves as more than just mythological backstory. It functions as metaphor for how historical injustices and cultural disrespect create ongoing consequences that affect subsequent generations in ways they may not fully understand or acknowledge. The children of South Park, forced to navigate a reality where death lacks permanency, adults cannot be trusted, and supernatural threats emerge from everyday situations, develop coping mechanisms and moral frameworks that reflect broader patterns of resilience and adaptation in communities affected by systemic dysfunction. Stan, Kyle, Kenny, and Cartman's friendship endures not despite the chaos that surrounds them, but because of their shared experience of growing up in a place where normal rules don't apply and conventional wisdom proves inadequate for addressing the challenges they face. Their bond transcends individual personality differences and moral disagreements because they understand, at a fundamental level, that they must rely on each other in ways that children in more stable environments might never need to consider. The series' lasting impact extends beyond entertainment into realms of social commentary, cultural criticism, and philosophical exploration that continue to influence how audiences think about childhood, community, authority, and moral responsibility. South Park's unique combination of crude humor and sophisticated analysis creates space for examining difficult topics that might otherwise be avoided or oversimplified in mainstream discourse, while its animated format allows for creative approaches to storytelling that would be impossible in live-action media. As South Park continues to evolve and adapt to changing cultural conditions, its fundamental insights about human nature, social dysfunction, and the persistence of hope in apparently hopeless circumstances remain as relevant and necessary as ever. The cursed town of South Park, with all its supernatural chaos and institutional failure, ultimately serves as a reminder that even in the darkest and most absurd circumstances, genuine human connection, moral courage, and the possibility of growth and redemption persist against all odds.